She's rambling.
It's
It's gonna be a
dripping like
drama.
water. It's not water. It's my drink, actually. Hold on. I have to
Yeah,
put
we already know what
towels
it is.
down. I can't hear you. You're just gonna have to wait a second.
I'm not talking to you.
No, this is not funny.
I mean, it's pretty funny
Oh,
for
I
me.
had so much fun. Oh.
Listen, it's not a big deal. This is chaos,
Well,
right? That's what you want.
Everywhere.
There's whatever cubes
Oh my God,
everywhere.
I'm like seriously.
This is perfect.
Right back.
Don't worry about it. Frankie and I got this. So here's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Jozlyn just knocked her drink off all over her. There's like ice cubes. And now I'm speculating that it's probably Florida in a cup. She can't hear us right now, which is like Tito's because it's gluten-free and some version of Bywater, I think, but sometimes that's hard to get.
Hi.
So it might not be that, but I'm not 100% sure.
OMG, you guys. I like literally I always have water and a drink with me. And I was like, went to move my whatever, all my stuff I have near me. And I dumped my whole drink like all over me.
I did that yesterday, but it wasn't vodka. At least it doesn't smell, right? That's supposed to
Right?
be like the
Well, we have to know what was in it because I guess. So I need to know.
Everything is
was.
clean now because vodka is like, it's disinfectant.
Is it Bywater?
Good. It probably killed COVID too. So
exactly.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
It's vodka, it's Tito's, and then it's my Bywater. It's my Florida in a cup,
Right. Okay.
What
yeah.
else is it
Classic.
But now my entire studio.
I just won $1 million. So because I guessed that.
Okay, so we're
amazing. Wow.
Right? It's all it takes.
We're gonna have to do my fun thing because it's like covered in like vodka and water before we get started. Okay, so my fun thing was to create your own affirmation. So if I can hopefully still read it, I mean, I might be able to because it's soaking wet. You're supposed to take your first letter of your first name and then your zodiac sign and then the last digit of your birth year. So mine was J, and it comes up with I release. I'm a Capricorn, my fears, and the year that I was born and ends with a 7. So it's I release my fears and make room for opportunities, which is like so perfect for me right now. I released my drink all over myself and now my biggest fears come true, but whatever. So Ginger, your first
That was
letter.
a lot of math.
I know it was a lot of math, but well, no, it's easy.
How about I just come up with an affirmation?
Fine, but you're just not. Why do you never play the fun games? I mean,
it's too confusing. It's too hard. I don't understand the rules. Okay, here's what I'm going to go with. I am going to breathe all the time.
Okay. I mean, important to breathe all the time.
I know.
Yes.
I mean,
that's my affirmation.
You don't
Does that count?
Die. I mean, I guess that counts. Okay, so Frankie, what's your affirmation?
Okay, wait a minute. I want to play, but I also didn't understand the rules, but I wanted to like smile and nod, so I looked cool about it. But I heard like first letter of my name and then my what's astrological sign?
Yeah, what's your birth month?
So July. I'm a Cancer.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So I release my doubts. What's the end of your birthday year? What year you were born in? The last number.
The last number. I like really think about that. I'm like, when was I born? 8.
Okay, so same thing. So I release my my doubts.
Mm-hmm.
And I make room for new opportunities, which kind of fits for you.
Oh man.
Right?
I think that is very fitting for you.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like so calm now.
I'm kind of like doing this like affirmation kind of thing. And like when I wake up in the morning, I try to put my feet on the ground and like just say something nice, say something
nice.
Positive. I try to, but I mean, this kind of goes along with the fact that like you have something new that's happening right now. You just released your book. That's kind of like a big freaking deal, so lots of doubts and fears and all that kind of stuff goes like,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, so much. What's that term? I'm like, I can't think today. You ever have those days?
Brain fog,
imposter syndrome. I do have a brain fog and but I have like major imposter syndrome. Like it's really scary to put like your ideas out into the universe and let
at
people
some point
buy
you have
them.
to be like, yeah, it's done. right? I
It-
feel like that'd be the part I'd have the hardest
oh
time
my
with. It's like
God. You know
never done.
what?
You're like, it could be better. It's not like a
It-
cake where you make it and then
yes.
you eat it and
No,
that's it.
that
Like,
was really hard for me. And like, I got these emails from my publisher. Okay, like here's the copy edited version. Here's this version, but we need your approval, right? And
yeah.
so, yeah, you do have to let go. Like, I'd be like, oh, I hate this line so much, but no, I have to let go. I've like changed it 1,000 times, and still, there's like somebody texted me like a quote. They're like, I love this line. And I'm like, oh, that's the worst one, but like I I have to let go because
Right.
I couldn't listen to myself anymore. I hated everything at some point. Yeah, that was very hard for me. I've
Look,
never edited. Oh my God.
this is your
Right.
book, right? Okay. And
I
I know
love
on,
that.
I
Wait,
know
we have to say what this is. This is
Okay.
a book that has about 50 post-it notes in it of different colors that are clearly representative of different things.
I
This
have
is
to
not
show you. Wait a minute. This is hysterical. This is like, I mean, this is like what I do.
there we go.
You and I, we're
we're
like,
like
we're
soul
messing.
sisters.
I know.
Frankie has
I
one
mean,
too.
yeah, I have a manual here, like that I use for some stuff, and I'm obsessed with like post-it notes. I have ones like with lines. Oh, can you see them? Ones with outlines. Yeah, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
why I had to laugh.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, we should probably spill the beans because you came on, we were talking a little bit earlier before you came on. We were talking about how you came on episode 47. I think was it 47? It was 47, parenting the great experiment.
Yeah, which I
And we had
love.
so much fun and
It was fun.
and we had already invited you back and then it just sort of was like the universe kind of like brought us back together and it just kind of lined up. But
Mhm.
I have to tell you, I love your book. Like, I'm not
Oh,
joking. Like, I get
yay.
chills. It's called I Love My Kids, but I Don't Always Like Them. Like, hashtag mom truth. Like,
Based on a true story. It is.
right?
Yes.
And I started reading it because obviously I was going to read it anyways, but then obviously I was more motivated because I knew you were coming on. And one, it's like the way that you write, it's almost like you're just talking to me. Like you and I are just hanging out in the same room and you're just sharing your pieces of your own chaos, like, and then you're educated and helping other people figure out how to sort out their like craziness that's going on in their household. And I was like, where was this book? Like 2 years ago.
That's awesome. I'm so glad it's so hard to put something like this out into the
Mhm.
universe, and I'm glad it's reading that way. And it's like so weird to call yourself a parenting expert because I'll never like I don't know, I'll never call myself any more than like a pretty okay mom, right? Because like nobody is. Like I'm gonna feel all the time. And I used to get really worried about it. Like I'd bump into a colleague. I was doing all this consulting and I'd have one of my kids with me and they would just be like terrible. Like they would just be obnoxious and like
Sure.
wouldn't say hi. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm supposed to be an expert, but no, kids are kids and I'm a human. And so I wanted it to be really honest and share like my mistakes too.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And I remember, I think I posted something on Instagram where I was like super frustrated because I was just kind of like, I like, and you say it in your book because that was like what I was explaining on one of my posts. I was just kind of like, where are all the parenting books about like the real life situations? Like your kid is
Mhm.
melting down in the grocery store. Okay, we
Mhm.
kind of touched on that, but we didn't really like go with the real life experience,
Mhm.
or like your kids are acting like total a-holes, because they got home from school and they're starving and they didn't go pee
Mhm.
because they were scared because there was a lizard in the bathroom. I'm not talking from experience. And so he almost peed his pants in a 5-minute drive home,
Sure.
and then he was just being a little turd. And I was like, oh my God, you just got in the freaking car. Like, really? Like, I haven't seen you all day. So, I mean, you really do take real life experience.
What's funny is about it is that it's not the kind of thing that happens only once in a while. It happens all the
Me?
fucking time.
All
No, for
these
every
feelings.
parent.
Sure.
It'd be
Like,
one thing if we had to deal with that like
yeah.
once, but it's
Oh my
like
God.
all the time.
Right. That you're like, what happened here? Like, why am I doing this? Sure. Like we all have those moments. I mean, I had to justify it a little bit to like some of my family members. like, maybe the grandparents, they're like, what? My grandkids? I'm like, no, I promise. I love them. I swear. But, being a mom, it's not for the weak.
It's
Right.
not. And like, I honestly, every day I'm like, I love my kids and they make me a better person. They bring out like the best in like who I am most of the time. But at the same time, I'm like, I am not qualified for this job. This job, I am underqualified. Like, I
Who
didn't
is?
realize like what was happening, And
Right.
you say that in your book, you were talking about how you were like, you read all the parenting books, took all the parenting classes,
Uh-huh.
and then you get to a point where you're like, now what? Like,
Right.
like help.
Right. And I went through that multiple times, like 3 times, right? I have 3 kids and they all need different things. Like
Right.
that like took me by surprise each time. With the second kid, I was like, no, I'm cool. Like I got this. Like and my first was an easy baby, so I thought that was totally because I was awesome. No, it was totally different. Like totally different. Like she didn't sleep at
Totally.
all. And then with the third kid, I was like, oh well, that can happen again. Like that was just bad luck, right? No, like another new person. So yeah, it is not easy. And I've worked with thousands upon thousands of kids and teens and preschoolers. But it's different when they're yours. It's
Oh
different
my
in an
God.
amazing way and different in a challenging way too.
Oh my
Totally.
God, totally. I remember back in the day, Ginger's like first was like perfect sleeper. Wasn't he like a perfect sleeper?
Totally. Everyone kept asking me, like, what's he like? I'm like, I don't know. He sleeps all the time. Like, he's a baby. I have no idea.
Yeah,
A-
mine was also
And I
Apparently, that's not how they come. Everything I know about
Mhm.
babies, I learned from TV, right?
Mhm.
and honestly, like I had a kid that would not sleep in a crib. Like he
Mhm.
only slept on me. Like I was on the struggle bus for like a long time. And people are like, just do this. No, just doing this does not work for me. And I think something that really resonated with me the last time we had you come on was you were saying that like behavior is communication. Like
Mhm.
let's talk about that for a minute because there's probably a couple more people that are going to have to go back and listen to that first episode you were on. So like let's talk about that like really quickly because I feel like that's also a theme here in your book.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Mhm.
So like how is that? Like how is behavior communication?
So, I I mentioned this in the book, and it's really like one of the major intentions of the whole thing is that when we look at a kid's behavior and then we just like come up with a plan, right? Like a consequence plan, we miss a lot of opportunity to understand what's going on. So if a child has a meltdown and we strive to understand it and figure out what their triggers are, we may actually prevent it from happening again. Not that it will never happen again, but it'll happen less often.
Right.
If your child is all of a sudden like wanting to run the show, like any activity you plan doesn't sound good, they want to choose everything. It's important to think, like they're trying to get control over something. What feels like they don't have control in their life? So it's really a classic way in which mental health professionals are trained and those that do like behavior plans in schools, but we don't really think about it so much as parents. And I sort of forgot that too. Like I've been trained that way, but it took me a while to figure out that I could use what was working out in the field, and sometimes it was literally out in the field, like when I worked at the overnight camp,
Yeah.
and like use it in my classroom. So all of a sudden, I was finding so much success professionally, but my kids, I was like, what do I do with those humans? Like they're not listening. They're embarrassing me in public. I'm tired, and I realized I could incorporate it into my house.
Yeah. That's so cool. So you've been a teacher, you've been a camp counselor, and I know we touched on it a little bit. And Ginger had said that you've worked in the camp counseling division of like the
That is
world.
not what I said.
Well, no, that's my words. But you were excited because you
I
love
said
camp.
Frankie is a badass
Okay.
about camp.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's one of my degrees. Yes.
Okay, well that was the Jozlyn version of
Yes. I think that explains it pretty well, actually. I was on the director team for one of the largest overnight camps in North America that happens to be in Michigan.
Yeah.
And what I ran there was, we called it our camper care team. So it evolved the 5 summers I was there. but through really amazing grant opportunities. The last summer I was there, we had 5 social workers working for camp, and also this team of teachers who spent the summer with. So we're talking like amazing professionals just to be there to help problem solve with kids when they weren't getting along, when counselors needed help with behavior, when our staff struggled. And that happened too. It's not like turn 18 and go to college and you don't need support anymore. So it was really quite amazing. And I learned so much from my social work colleagues that I now I'm in school and almost a clinical social worker because apparently I was bored and needed something else to do. I don't know. Yeah.
Write a
So
book, become a social
right,
worker,
sure. Like
whatever.
I don't know, and that's why I'm so tired. Um, yeah. So I learned so much about like the secret sauce and talking to kids really in camp and camping because it's just such a unique environment. The
And
parents
it's a
aren't
hands-on
there.
experience with so many kids.
Right, right. You're in this weird
And
bubble with all children.
the kids are all having fun. It's not like
Right.
school where
Hmm.
like they hate their day as much. Like you
Right.
get this practice and all this experience with kids when they're in a good mood, mostly having fun. Like,
Hmm.
and I think that gave you a really good opportunity to learn in a unique way, different from other professionals. Having that foundation, I think is you can
Absolutely.
see it in everything
Hmm.
that you're doing. I think that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like all social skills. So it's different. Like different kids struggle. So it's definitely like I just watched so much, like watching them interact and figuring out what helped them figure out why they were struggling. It's just amazing what happens when you ask kids what's going on. Like they're pretty insightful.
Yeah, and that's what in one of the parts of your book. You're just kind of like when someone's acting up or something's going on and they're not acting the way that you think that they should be, like asking the kid like what's going on because 9 times out of 10 if you ask them, they might not realize, but then after you talk to them and get them talking, they already know the answer, right? So like let's talk about that a little bit because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and there's certainly like there's some other people like in this parenting and like kids space to talk about this too. And so it's something I really discovered at camp. And then I like read everything I could. Like Ross Green has written so much in this area. Like this is his like niche. He writes about it again and again. And it's really so fascinating. So I've worked at some like really impressive schools. I've consulted there, and they'll bring me in on a really tough case where they feel like they've exhausted all their resources, and they're like, we just need like a fresh set of eyes. And I'll meet with a social worker and a principal and a teacher and a special ed consultant. And I've done a lot of work in private schools, so we're talking like major resources. Like these teams are strong and they're big,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they'll be like, okay, we did this observation and we wrote this like gorgeous behavior plan, and all of the goals are measurable. Like, great. Okay, what does the kid say? Like, do they like these strategies? And then I get like blank stares. So all of a sudden I realize I'm like, oh my God, not everybody knows about this magic. Like I have to talk about this more.
Yeah.
So it's happened to me in education. It happens to me all the time, like working as a therapist and working with parents, running parenting groups through my consulting company. Sometimes we just forget. And you can ask young kids, you just have to ask in the right way. So even I've done a lot of consulting in preschool classrooms, and when I first got this consulting gig for a preschool classroom, I totally panicked. I'm like, what do I know about preschool? Like I've had a few kids, but I've never taught preschool. And I wrote a professor of mine that I liked, and I'm like,
Nice.
I need some like worksheets or something. I need like paperwork. I don't know. I need to come in with something. How do I do this? And he's like, you know how to do this. It's the same thing you've been doing in every other age group. You just have to make it appropriate for a 3-year-old. So
Right.
Right.
you can have this conversation with a 3-year-old, but not the way you would have it with your 18-year-old.
Right.
It's quite powerful. And it's exactly what you said. They may not, some kids know in the moment and it's amazing. And some kids will just be like, I don't know, or not want to talk about it. But you've
Yeah.
like planted that seed in their brain and they'll
Mhm.
come back to you later with an
Mhm.
answer.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's that I at one point in your book, you touched on something and it was like, "Oh my God, that is like my number. That's my middle." Like I'll say like, "What do you want for dinner?" I don't know. How are you feeling today? How was your day? I don't know. Right? Like he's just, I don't know. I don't know. And I was getting kind of frustrated. And I was just, and then there was a point in your book where I was like, oh my gosh, like he does know. I just like that's just his way of who he is. Like his brain doesn't
Mhm.
work that way. Like I'm stressing him out, you know? So like there are some kids that like it works
Mhm.
to ask them questions, but then there's some kids, like you said, like you have to kind of figure out how, like, you have to dissect and figure out like which kid operates in which way. And that's a lot of work. I don't want
It
to do
And
it.
I mean,
it's so
right?
So much.
It is. It
and it's so
is.
fun when the kids complain about like how one kid gets something and the other kid doesn't. And I'm like, this is not, everyone gets the same.
It,
Everyone gets what you need. That's it. And too bad for you. You don't need like anything.
right.
You're fine.
Yeah. I mean, I've been saying that to my kids since they were babies, and I'm sure they still think I'm wrong, but I'm okay with that. I've been saying that like everyone gets what they need and that's
Right.
it. And I think now like my kids sort of know that's like my shutdown line. I'm not gonna have an enormous conversation about it. I just turn my back. Like those are like eye rolls I just move
Shutdown
past.
line is so money.
Right,
That's
right. Like I
totally it.
I have a bunch of them, right? Like every mom needs those. That could be it's like a whole other book. Um, but I've been having that conversation with teachers for years too. Like, well, if I give this child like a spinning chair because it like helps them pay attention by moving, what happens to the other 19 kids who want the spinning chairs? I'm like, well, that's not, what they need. It actually might distract them. So it's a conversation that I was already comfortable with sort of professionally.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah,
Again, with the practice. I love it.
absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting because it's like, you don't realize that sometimes your kids, like, you get them in the car and you're going someplace, right? And then like all of a sudden they all act like total a-holes, and you're like, what is going on here? And I used to get in the car and be like, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is my expectations of each one of you, right? But then
Hmm.
you let your guard down. You get comfortable, right?
Hmm.
And then you end up in that situation where you took them to this really fun place like the botanical gardens and spent like $1 million to go there as a family, and you're literally leaving there like an hour later because they're all being
Is this
assholes.
hypothetical
It's
or
this
more
hypothetical,
realistic?
like I mean, like we're doing the air quotes, and then you're in the car and you're like literally like in your head like what the fuck, and then outwardly you're, I'm sorry to swear, but this is a safe space, but then
It's okay.
outwardly you're like, what's wrong with you people,
Right.
like I don't
Hmm.
want to, but I don't want to be like that, like I don't want to be like that.
You
So
could give them up for adoption. I just want to put that also out as an
I
option.
mean,
It's true. It's
I
true.
expect nothing less from
Or
you.
sell them. I hear you can get good money for
It's
children.
it's
I
right. I
mean,
mean, I don't know if what if they're messy though? Like what,
right.
Or we can
like
work with them in like a healthy way, like Frankie
oh,
recommends.
that's true
We
too.
have three options.
Yep, yep,
I'm gonna
for
go with
sure.
Frankie. I'm going with Frankie. Yeah.
I mean, it, it's true. We do let our guard down, especially as our kids get older. Like
Yeah.
that, and that was really I found myself as a parent. There were lots of parenting books, and I read them all, like about babies and toddlers. But what happens when your kid goes to kindergarten, and then you have like school age kids? Like unless they come already like some kids we know are, on the autism spectrum or have A, B, or C diagnosis. There's some great books about that. But what about just like your average kid who's going to have a bunch of challenges and drive you nuts sometimes? And that's really like what I tried to put together. I think sometimes we forget that, yeah, those expectations and the timers and the warnings that we give out in preschool, we still need them with our kids as
Right.
they get older, right?
Right.
Even more. And I found myself doing that too as my kids got older. And I now have like almost two teens. Like I'm going to have a 13-year-old in January, and it's still preteen, but she's trying really hard to be a teenager. Um, I'm finding they need my expectations even more. Like, I expect you to have a good attitude about this outing, even though I know it's not what you would have chosen. And here's why it's important. Like, I have to have those discussions with them because good attitudes are no longer the norm,
Yeah.
right? When you
Right.
have a teenager. But but it's also about like realistic expectations for ourselves. So I have to remind myself, like when a certain one of my children has to run an errand with me, and I talked about this in the book, like
Yes.
she's gonna like give me like a problem. She's gonna be annoyed and she's gonna like complain about it. But I have to like just know that's gonna happen and try not to care so much because it's not unexpected, right? Like it's
Right.
just gonna happen.
That's so
She'll live
valid.
through it. I'll
Yes.
live through it and we'll move on. And so I just say, yeah, I know you hate the grocery store, but I do not have time to take you home. So, we're going.
Right. And,
Right.
and, like,
No?
and suck it up and deal with it because it's like one
Right.
time. But the other part in that story, which I found like really, really refreshing and like an aha moment that we cannot glaze over, you talk about saying like you need to accommodate your own needs as a I got the sticky note. I'm doubling
Waving it
down.
around.
I'm waving
Glad
it around.
glad that's helping you. Yeah.
Like I accommodate myself in my own needs. Imagine that, my own needs, meaning that like how many times have you argued with your teenager about going to the grocery store and how you have a million other things you've got to deal with? So what do? You decide to problem solve and make one less thing on your list harder and you make it easier for you and you think about you and then it's like a trickle effect, right? Because then it
Mhm.
impacts the whole family. You know,
Yes.
and I've been trying to do that recently in the last like couple of years. I think we've all figured out that like, like shit travels south. So like if you're not good, right? Like
Yep.
sorry, but I mean it's the truth. Like if you're not good, then your kids aren't going to be good. So
Mhm.
sometimes you have to start at you as the source, right?
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Which leads me into so how did you come to that point where you're kind of like, aha, like I need to take care of me. And you talk about getting grocery delivery because you're like,
Yeah.
fuck the grocery store. I'm not going.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Instacart.
Instacart, like I
Ugh.
have to say, like I was like pre-pandemic Instacarting. Like I
Me
was, a
too,
pioneer,
me too.
right?
Yes.
Like
And
I
did,
loved it.
did
It's
you
like,
find that like when things started getting weird, you had all these backup skills? You were like, oh, I already know what you're trying to do, like the shipping
well,
times and all this stuff.
but
But
there was like a few months, maybe I don't even remember. Everything's like one big day. But there was
Yeah.
there was some time in
Right.
Michigan where I couldn't get an Instacart time because all these other people were like, "Oh, it's a pandemic. I'm gonna use Instacart." And then eventually they started being more loyal to the people. They like said it. They announced it. Like if you have been with us for a while, you'll get more times. I was like, "Thank you." Like,
Priority.
move aside.
Priority.
right, loyalty
Right,
points.
right, totally. But how did I figure out, like, did I have to meet my own needs? I would say
Yeah.
that is like a daily struggle. And then I'm like just trying to actually have the struggle instead of just totally glossing over them. Like self-care, like taking care of my own needs, it's something I recognize that I'm missing daily and also like addressing in small ways.
Yeah.
So it is but I also know that I'm an example for my kids.
Right.
So, that's really important too. Sometimes, like my son, this happened to me tonight. He came in my room. He likes to watch these like HGTV shows with me. I don't know. It's so cute. Like I like them too, right?
Mine too. I love it. This is the
Right.
best. It's
Right.
the
And
best.
he's like all he wants to talk about is baseball and like NASCAR, but I don't know. He wants to watch those shows with me. So I feel like that's amazing. He's 9, like he's not going to want to like cuddle with me in my bed that much longer. So part of me is like I should never say no to him because I want to appreciate that time. But tonight I just really didn't want to. Like I was spent. I had a long night. Like I wanted to wrap up a couple things, and so I said, I'm not in the mood tonight, but I love you. And like, you can read a book in my room if you want to be in here with me. I gave him a few other choices, but I felt like that was really important. And it was like, I think I showed him that you can say no in like a polite way. Like it's
Right.
important to advocate for your own needs. And I always tell like my therapy clients, I want you to tell me when something doesn't feel uncomfortable. I just trust you to say it nicely.
Yes.
That's all I ask.
It's like
But
the
you can
best tip
say
of the
it.
night. I needed
is-
that earlier. Thank
Oh
you
my
for that.
God.
I'm going to
Yeah.
use that in 20 minutes.
Well, and that's one of the right.
Yep.
And that's also one of the reasons why I brought that affirmation up. Like it was a little
Mhm.
fun like exercise for all of us. But I mean, we do just taking like a second out of our day. Like that's why before my feet go on the ground, my alarm goes off,
love
and
that.
like I just say like one nice thing to myself, and then I start my morning routine, and then I start my day. But like all hell is breaking loose as I walk out into the kitchen, and people are fighting and throwing bread at each other and trying to make their lunch, and goldfish is flying everywhere, and it's like, but at least I took that 1 second just to say
Right.
one affirmation, and it makes a difference. Like people don't
Mhm.
realize that you don't have to do these like life altering, changes. You can make small little tiny changes. Like I think in our last podcast, you talked about just going for a walk and taking a
Right.
shower, right?
Yes.
Like you just like saying to yourself, like, you know what? I want to watch HD TV. I can't even say that. Property Brothers. I want to watch Property Brothers with you. Or I want to
Right.
watch but like,
Mhm.
you know what? I can't tonight. Like I want to watch Clone Wars with my kids tonight. But you know what? It's podcasting night. We might get to it. We might not.
Right.
This is for
Right. And we
me.
hope they don't melt down when you tell them.
I mean, yes. Yes.
So what
I
do
mean,
I say to them? What do I say to them? If they melt down, like what do I say?
Well, I think that's what I was going to ask is like,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think the secret to everything is knowing the expectations. Like, what can you really expect from your kid? And I think as moms, we're the only ones, I mean, and dads, like, we're the only ones that really know. And it's our job to communicate that to like the other adults in the kid's life. So,
Wow.
how do we find
Boom.
out
yes.
like
Yeah.
who, like the expectations? It's like trial and error, I don't know.
It is.
Yeah.
It is total. So it's total trial and error, right? Like I have parents. They've been coming to me like my whole career. Like my child's doing A, B, and C, but that's not what 5-year-olds do. Well, it is what your 5-year-old does. So let's figure it out. Like, is there some skill that they're lacking that we can teach them? Or is it just where they are? And we just have to be patient because they're less mature in that area.
Right.
Right.
Or there's even like another or are they going to just always be that way, right? So some
Totally.
like some kids
No,
just
don't
have
say that. Don't
deficits
say
that are
that. I need a
it
fix.
doesn't
I'm
no,
just
some
joking.
kids have deficits that like
Yeah.
will always be their
Right.
struggle. It doesn't mean that there aren't like tips and tools to make it better and to accommodate and ways to like not make it negatively
Right.
impact
I'm
their
never going to know how to
lives.
spell
But
probably no matter what. Like you could
right.
do all the things. It's don't
Well,
expect it for me. It's never going to happen properly.
well, I will
Right.
tell you, I mean, you should see, I should go into like the box my mom gave me when she moved out of our childhood home that I don't want to open. That probably has my like papers from high school. You should see all the red marks. All right. I was not a good writer in school. I cannot spell at all. But guess
None.
what? Like there are editors
Yeah.
and proofreaders out there, and I have a team of them. Like I have
Totally.
one who does my if I have a social media post that is more than 2 paragraphs, I throw it to the editor to take a look at it. And I have one that does my blogs, and then I have one who did the book.
Yeah.
So, right, like it's always going to be me. It doesn't necessarily have to hold me back, though. I just have to recognize it and deal with it and
Right.
accommodate it.
Totally.
And find the right tools and the right people to support
Yes.
you so that you can still do what you want to do and be yourself. I have to tell you, oh my God. I seriously like my middle, he'll never put his shoes in the shoe cubby. Like we talked
Oh,
about this, this week. Like we
mhm.
talked about this in a previous episode. He's never going to put his shoes in a shoe cubby. And Ginger's like, just move the shoe cubby to where his shoes are. And then like even like the toad pooped in his shoes and he still like won't put it in the shoe cubby. So I've given up on the shoes going in the
Mm.
shoe cubby. Like, that's just not
I told
gonna
you to leave him
happen.
alone about it.
I
said it's
did.
never going to happen.
I know, and I did. And I pick other battles. Like for me, there's a line drawn though. Like, fine, your clothes aren't gonna go in the hamper, but you know what? Guess what? The wet towel from your shower, that's where I'm gonna draw the line. That towel has to go in the hamper. And I'm gonna make sure. So, anyways, like you gotta pick and choose your battles, right? I mean,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
that brings me to your right size. Like,
Yes.
can you explain that to me? Because I was like, earmark, post-it note, post-it note, post-it note, note, like underline, highlight. like,
Right.
what's that?
So, okay. So, like I said, parents will say, like, hey, this kid's 5, they should be doing ABC. Or I'll work with a teacher and they're like, but this kid's in 6th grade. Or, a parent. Yes, like understanding what makes sense at different ages, that's a place to start. It's
Right.
so, it's very helpful, right?
Mhm.
When I work at ECC and I'm doing an observation, it's really good to know that in a 3-year-old classroom, I'm looking at the youngest child, like by birth month. Like that will tell me something. But then we have to look at each individual child and their strengths and weaknesses. So I talk a lot. I feel like it's sort of a theme in different chapters about certain kids who just like need breaks.
Yeah.
And that sometimes we think, well, they get to a certain age and they can just push through and they're good. And sure, like they might have more ability to push through, but there's still people who like do better when they like chunk their work into small pieces, right? Like I love working at home because I will like hyper focus, like get so much done in a half hour, and then I'll get up and grab a snack and like do a load of laundry. Like that actually makes me more productive if I remember to come back and sit down and work again.
Right.
But
Don't get distracted.
right. But I do better in like little spurts of time. So just really, it is really trial and error. Like what you're saying, you have to just sort of get to know your kid and experiment and see what works, and then be their advocate when someone doesn't get it. Like why eighth grader might like get overstimulated at like a birthday party or a big celebration and just like need 2 minutes where no one talks to him. But that's who he is, and he'll come back and he knows how to calm himself down.
Right.
So yeah, it's really just like recognizing that we're all individuals.
And that's pretty like forward thinking, because I mean, I don't ever remember like, I remember back in the day when I was like having a meltdown, or like, it was like I wasn't feeling good, or I was, it was like after a soccer tournament, and it was like there was no like, oh, maybe you're dehydrated, like maybe you need
Mhm.
like an extra snack, like maybe you're hungry. It was just like, get over it, go to bed, take some Benadryl, like not, so I mean, like actually being aware. No, I mean seriously, like I mean, I'm
Mhm.
exaggerating, but
That's awesome.
but
I'm not going to call social services. It's fine.
okay,
You're
thank
grown up.
you.
It's too late.
Well, I'm grown up. I mean, yeah, that's why I'm in therapy. No, I'm joking. But
Right.
I mean, honestly
Mhm.
though, like behavior is communication, and like you said, but sometimes like I don't wanna, like I don't wanna have to figure it out, right? Like my kid's acting like an a-hole, and like he should just eat the macaroni and cheese. Like, yes, the label looks different, but like, you know what? That's because your dad went grocery shopping and I didn't go grocery
Right.
shopping, and I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time to micromanage your like, but I should because I'm the parent, but sometimes you just are like, I'm done, like
Wow.
it's hard,
And I mean, first of all, you
That's
have to be
3.
able to, right. You have to be able to tag out sometimes, like either tag another parent in, or like if you're by yourself, like you're not going to handle every moment perfectly. The beauty in handling sort of that meltdown, or like I had a client explain this like an explosion of emotion, which I thought was so cool and true, is you don't have to handle it right in the moment. It's actually not even the best time. Like they just need to have their feelings. So you can say, yeah, I get it. I know this is not the macaroni and cheese you have. It's what I have.
Right.
And you can like walk out of the other room because they just need to be upset. And